Hey friends, thanks for taking time to listen in on conversations Dick and I had with American F2 driver Jak Crawford and Troy, a friend from the Two Guys, a Girl, and F1 community. The first conversation is one Dick and I had with American F2 driver Jak Crawford about the unique challenges of Monaco's legendary street circuit and his preparation techniques for this year's race. The second conversation is one I had with Troy, a friend from the Two Guys, a Girl, and F1 community, who shares insights on what makes Monaco special and offers valuable tips for fans considering attending this iconic race. The guys and I thought this would be a wonderful way to usher in the most famous Grand Prix weekend for Formula One, supporting American racing talent and shining the light on those of you within this community. Hope you enjoy these conversations. All right, Dick, we have our wonderful friend, Jak Crawford, who is a Formula 2 American racer, continuing to pursue that dream of getting onto the Formula 1 grid. And we're just so proud to be able to have this conversation with him right now.
Absolutely. And Jak, just again, thank you so much for your time. And it's fun because there's a lot of young guys up here in the Dallas area who are aware of what we're doing on the podcast. And when they found out that I get to have another conversation with you, they were all like, please pass along the fact that we are just so proud and excited for what you're doing. And there are a lot of Aston Martin guys here, believe it or not. And so anyway, they are super stoked for what you're doing and wish you nothing but the best. So they asked me to convey that message to you. There's probably easily a dozen guys that are roughly your age and a little older who are all like, you get to talk to him and we don't? What's this about? So there you go.
Well, thanks. And happy to represent Texas.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're glad to have you representing us, believe me.
Yes. I mean, you're doing a fantastic job, Jak. Your tenacity, your resilience, and I'm just really proud of you. Every time the F2 races happen, I'm sitting here cheering you on. And I know there's so many of us that just watch what you're doing and are really very much rooting for you to continue to see success. So tell us about the 25 season so far. We're recording after the Jeddah race. We hope to release this sometime before the Monaco race. So there's been some race time that you've had, and there's also more to come. So tell us where you think things are so far.
Yeah, it's been a weird start to the season. Melbourne, I qualified qualified third, and then the races didn't happen. Came away with 0 points there after the race was cancelled, and Bahrain was really tough for us as a team, where we just struggled to put everything together and had various issues throughout the weekend, which again led to 0 points across the weekend, and then needed a good response in Jeddah and back that up with pole and P2 in the feature race. So pretty happy with the result. I think it was after Bahrain, it was such a tough moment, and then to put it on pole literally 5 days later was a great feeling. Definitely one of the best things I felt in motorsport for a long time. So happy to finally, let's say, be up there where I think I belong. All looking forward now.
Jak, what is it like to drive at Jeddah? Because I watch it on TV, of course, and as a racer myself, I'm just like, oh man, there's a wall right there that could reach out and just bite you. and of course you see it every now and then. And so to stick it on pole, not only is it a testament to your skill, but also your bravery. Because I look at it and I'm going, ooh.
Yeah, I would say it's definitely the most daunting track that we go to. The fact that it's the highest speed circuit on the calendar, highest corner speed circuit on the calendar, and it's a street course. It just makes it, I remember this is my third time in Jeddah now. I remember coming for my first time and thinking like, oh my gosh, like I have to do the qualifying tomorrow and I have to be on my A game, and I don't even know the track yet. So luckily, I know the track now, and still even after 3 years driving in Jeddah is like nothing else. I think only actually there in Monaco can have that kind of feeling, that sort of rush you get through a lap, and you really have to put it all on the line. But it's a place where you're flirting with a DNF every lap.
High risk, high reward.
High risk, high reward, basically. Yeah.
Very interesting. Like I said, I've raced enough to know that when you look at that track, it's just kind of like, full credit to you and all those guys that are racing there.
Yeah, I actually saw one of the driver's moms who was a rookie just on the Thursday, and I guess she had seen the track or something. She came up and she was like, "Oh, I'm really scared for for this one." So I feel for her because I know a lot of the parents are probably like that. So
When you said that Jeddah is similar to Monaco, how do you approach those types of races where the stakes are so hard and so high? Is it a mental aspect of preparation? Is there physical? How do you do that? Especially when you talk about the forces and how fast you're going.
yeah, so I mean, you mentioned a good point. I mean, the physical aspect is definitely part of it. I'd say those Jeddah. Honestly, this year it was really hot. It was over 100 degrees during the race, and the car was roasting. It was, I'd say, it's probably the hardest race I've ever done from a physical standpoint. So luckily, I was well prepared. So luckily, I didn't, lose focus and make a mistake, because that could definitely be something to happen. But I guess especially these kind of tracks where the risk reward is, so high, you just have to build up to it. Unfortunately, though, in F2 we only have 45 minutes of practice, and there's red flags riddled in them, especially on a street track like that. So you have to build it up, but also you have to be, at some point you got to take the risk and hope it sticks, basically. So especially at these tracks, you want to build up your confidence. You don't want to go out on the first lap. I mean, for example, when we go to Barcelona or Bahrain, we've tested there a bunch. There's no walls nearby. We can arrive in free practice and do qualifying laps literally on the first lap. But when you get to Jeddah and Monaco, you gotta build it up and get that confidence, basically. And free practice is then completely separate to qualifying. Qualifying is where you kind of put everything together you learn from practice, and then you only have really 2 qualifying laps to figure it all out. So
To get it done.
Yep.
Yeah. In the meantime, the track is evolving all the time, right? So it's going to be a different track when you go out again, right?
Yeah, everything's changing. And also, special thing about Monaco is that actually in F2 we only do 1 session per day. So usually we do practice and qualifying on a Friday within 4 hours of each other. But in Monaco, because they got to open the streets up at night, we're limited to 1 session per day. So we do practice Thursday, and then you got 24 hours towards qualifying.
Yep.
And it's also split into 2 groups, so it's 15 minutes qualifying. So it's Monaco's a special one. You really got to be on your game straight away, and it all starts in the practice, really.
Do you get much simulator time prior to Monaco or anything like that, so that you can at least kind of start getting into the groove before you get there?
Yeah, I'd say that's the biggest thing nowadays. A lot of drivers, use, especially at a F2 level, with only 45 minutes of practice. You can't spend that 45 minutes kind of feeling it out. You got to be there, within at least 3 laps on the pace, or else you're gonna kind of struggle all weekend, and it's just gonna be, you're always gonna be trying to chase things, and that's when mistakes can happen. So yeah, we do a lot of simulator. We do 2 to 3 days per track. So straight after our Imola race, we'll fly back on a Sunday night, do simulator Monday, Tuesday, fly out to Monaco Tuesday night, and we're there on Wednesday for our track walk. Yeah, we do lots of preparation. I'm lucky enough to be able to drive a lot in the Aston Martin simulator, a lot with dams in the simulator. So I have a lot of experience at all these tracks on the simulator. So I feel like I'm able to know the tracks pretty well before I even arrive.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's a huge advantage.
When I'm hearing you talk about the sim work, I was reading about just the intensity that these sims put on you. What I think some of us as the lay people, we think of going to a sim racing place and it's kind of muted. You're getting the full volume of the intensity that a machine can give you as close to the reality. So it's hard work that you're putting in there, right? And so when you talk about you're going from the Imola race straight into the sim after traveling, then getting out of the sim, traveling again, and getting to the next race, you are putting your mental and physical self into a very high load consecutively. Am I right in that assessment?
Yeah, it's the sim days, they're pretty tough. They're sometimes you start at 8 in the morning and at 6 o'clock in the evening. They're 10-hour days where you got a lunch break and some breaks in between, but it's pretty mentally draining as well. I mean, you're basically kind of, imagine just staring at a screen playing video games all day. At the end of the day, you'll kind of lose your focus a little bit. But it also is, I guess, in a way, physically challenging in a way, Luckily, we have some air conditioning in there. The steering wheel and the steering weight is still the same. So from a physical side, that's still tough, and you're still sweating every time you get out. So it's not easy. And over a day we'll do 150 to 200 laps, I'd say.
Wow.
So you're doing laps all day basically, and those are days where you just get back to the hotel and you go to sleep straight away. So
I can imagine because that would wear you out mentally.
yeah.
So when you do approach Monaco, how do you look at that race? I mean, we were talking ahead of our recording that, Monaco is the moment where everybody in the world seems to all of a sudden realize there's formula racing, right? Like entertainment, politics, everybody. I think John has a great statement. Anybody who's anybody wants to be at Monaco. So, but as a racer, this is like what many racers look at as the history, the epitome of racing, but it's also a unique track. And so how do you kind of juggle all that? How do you approach that both in your prep and then actual execution as a racer?
Yeah, I guess, Monaco is the one everyone wants to win. The teams want to win it. Drivers want to win it. Mechanics want to win it. Engineers want to win it. Everyone wants to win in Monaco. I guess, Monaco is the toughest place to pass as well. I mean, there's probably on average maybe one pass a year during the race. So that means it's all about qualifying. So big emphasis on qualifying. Qualifying, it matters more than anything around Monaco. So again, kind of going back to the preparation side, all the focus is on qualifying, preparing the car for qualifying, preparing the driver for qualifying, getting as many laps in the sim as possible. But what's special about Monaco, I think, is it's the shortest track on the calendar, it's the slowest track on the calendar, but it feels the fastest. Just because the walls are so close. It's always kind of like it, you're always about to crash. It's one of those places where you always have to commit to the corner, or else you're going to be slow, but you could end up missing a break and being in the runoff or in the wall. So it's a very special place, and it's there's so much history behind it as well. Obviously everyone wants to race it. They've been racing there for forever, and all the best drivers have won at Monaco, so everyone wants to win it. I'd say there's definitely a lot of pressure at that race in particular, especially on qualifying. So yeah, not much more I can say about it. It's just the most special F1 race.
What in your mind would be the ideal quali environment?
No rain. Too many variables when it rains. Hopefully no red flags as well. That just add more confusion and just stuff you don't need. And you just need clean track. And for our qualifying session, we'll have 3 laps at it. Ideally the last one for us is going to be the one where we need to put it all together. So I remember last year it didn't work out. It rained in practice, super wet, and then in qualifying there was a red flag and it was down to 2 laps, and there was a timing error, and so I missed my last lap. So I only had 1 lap in qualifying last year and ended down in 18th, and that's my weekend done. That's it. I couldn't recover to points from that, so it just puts that much emphasis on qualifying.
The audience can't see my face, but I scrunched up because I remembered that, and I remember as it was happening, I just felt so bad. I was like, oh, that quali session was not fun. So I guess one of the things that I also, as you were talking, I wondered, how early does your day start? Everyone thinks, oh, you all are staying in Monaco and you're just like walking in this glitzy, glamorous environment. You kind of look like you're chuckling right now. I get the sense that might not be the reality for you. What does that look like? How are you commuting in and out of the city? I'm assuming that if you are commuting, it's got to be, you're dealing with all the people that have all of a sudden showed up there. Those are all elements that you're having to grapple with, as well as being a racing driver.
Monaco is it's a special one on all aspects. Obviously being in Monaco, very, very small area. There's not even a lot of roads, and the roads that they do use, it's F1 track. So a lot of the drivers, I'm not sure how it is for F1, but a lot of the teams and drivers actually stay in Nice. I'll stay in Nice, which is about a 45-minute drive from Monaco. I'll be honest, the drive is one of the coolest of the year. clear. You drive along the coast of the French Riviera, so it's really nice, really cool. And there's actually only 1-lane roads going into Monaco, so the traffic is insane. But luckily, I got a pass. We got the car pass that lets us up to our paddock. Our paddock is actually, it's barely in Monaco. It's like on the border. It's in a car park about half a mile away. So actually, we have to drive the cars down a hill to get to the track or get to the pit lane before the session. But it's a really cool experience. Our paddock is on the ocean. That's super cool.
Oh, wow.
And luckily, we actually don't have to deal with that many people. Besides the really bad traffic, they have a lot of security measures stopping random people from getting up in our paddock. So you have to have passes and all that to get up there. So actually, not too bad with the people. But overall, it's a very special race. It's also special because they do a big event on Sunday. We got F3, F2, I think Porsche Cup race there, obviously F1. So our day starts, I think our race starts around 9 in the morning. I think F3 is already going at around 7:30 in the morning. So it's an early morning on Sunday. I think it's probably a 5 a.m. rise. But Monaco, again, I said already, it's special. We got the 1 day, one time at track per day. So actually we don't have to be there at track all day on the Friday like we normally are, or on the Saturday as well. So it's quite relaxing in a way, but obviously none of the on-track stuff is...
there's that trade-off, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, I caught that you said that we have to have paddock passes to be able to get in, and I was like, oh, so I can't just all of a sudden find a way to get up there if I find myself in Monaco one year. That's a bummer, but that's okay.
You could sneak your way up.
Thank you. How did you know I'm a talker who likes to get into places? I gave that away. I may not want to tell that publicly, but
she's really good at it too. Trust me, she's really good at it.
Wow, this is really helpful, I think, for our audience and even for myself selfishly, because I think that we have an image of what the race is like as a result of being a viewer sitting comfortably on our couches. But to hear kind of a little bit more of how you're approaching the race, the actual environment of it, especially because I think one of the things that I think is very interesting is the number of races you experience in a year compared to a very loaded F1 calendar. There's some pros and cons to that. It sounds like it does put higher stakes on every weekend that you race. And depending on the circuit that's chosen, it's going to test your skills in a different way. But it's also something like Monaco. You get to be in the midst of one of the most amazing moments for the sport publicly. And it gives you an aspiration to pin for your F1 career. Even the processional aspect, I wonder what you think about Monaco and the processional aspect. Do you wish the cars were different so there was more overtaking? You're smiling. I think I know the answer because you're a racer, but I still want to ask that question. Do you feel like it's a processional?
It's tough because even back in the day when the cars were really small in the mid-2000s, they still really couldn't pass. I think it is what it is at this point, and I feel like the qualifying stuff is best session of the weekend. Great to watch. Yeah, I wouldn't change it. I know there's been a lot of talk that people aren't really liking the race, but it's been there for so long. I think just the history of it deserves a spot.
Yeah. I agree with you. I feel that way. I love what we get to see, and if anything, I hope people who are listening will realize the importance of quali. We've tried to be proponents of that in our conversations, is that people realize the full weekend has value, because you guys are working hard every day of the weekend, and especially in the Monaco, it's a little different. So it's even more important to be a well-rounded fan of motor racing. But so I know, Dick, you wanted to have a conversation a little bit about some of the other aspects of the racing calendar and Jak's outlook for 25.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know we've got a time crunch here as well, so I want to be respectful of that. Jak, I've read some things that suggest that maybe after Monaco, maybe Imola is the next track that is the most difficult to pass on. And I was just curious to get your views on it, having the fact that you've raced there. Would you hold with that view, or what are your thoughts on that?
It's coming to the point where all the tracks are starting to become a bit difficult to pass.
Yeah. Okay.
But no, I think Imola is one of the tougher ones. Definitely the pass. You have a long straight, but there's so many corners on the lap. There's so many opportunities to get a bunch of dirty air. But still, I think if there's one overtaking opportunity that can come every 10 laps, maybe, I feel like it's a decent track to have on the calendar. calendar. So I like Imola personally. It's one of my favorite tracks actually to drive. I remember back in my F4 days, it used to be overtaking Avon, overtake like crazy. But now obviously with faster cars, more aero cars, it's coming a bit more difficult. Yeah, Imola is a great track, and they're all a bit the same nowadays in a way. There's really only one overtaking opportunity on the lap. I mean, if I just look at the calendar, like Barcelona, there's basically one overtaking opportunity. Budapest, there's one overtaking opportunity. Even in Spa, there's really only one real overtaking opportunity. So, it's all about that straight line, I guess, and having a good exit on the last corner.
I hadn't thought of it in those terms, but yeah, when you say, oh yeah, there's one overtaking opportunity every 10 laps, I'm just kind of like, holy cow. Okay. As you know, you're talking to a kart racer, right? I get 15 laps in a final and
yeah, you gotta wait for the moment. You can't get too impatient because then you use your tires, and just gotta wait for the moment when everything's right and make the move.
Then you go. Yeah, that's really insightful. So my last question I've got lots of questions, but I'm gonna keep it to this one and spare you. You had told us before we started recording that you were not going to be at Miami. Will you have any role in the simulator back in England, or are you off for the weekend?
Yeah, so not for this weekend. I'm actually going to be in Monaco for the Formula E race. So that we talked about. So I'm going to be reserve driver at that race weekend. Just unfortunate that there was a conflict, but yeah, I'll be there. I think normally I'd be in the simulator on a Friday and Saturday. I did China, Japan already. I think we did one other race. No, maybe not. I think those were the only two. So it's in the simulator supporting the team there as part of my duties. So that was nice just to be able to help out the team. But
my assumption is that they run through a litany of setup things that they would like to try on the car, and then you say, yep, that works, or this one doesn't work, or whatever. And so then you're saving the team time at the track, basically, is what you're doing.
Yep, basically the biggest one is overnight from free practice 2 to free practice 3. Obviously the Saturday is a big day for F1, free practice 3 and qualifying. So the car's got to be dialed in, and they'll take everything from FP1, FP2. They'll say, this is what we want to try, or this is what we want, or this is what we want to try. We'll try all these different things to try and bring the performance. And then, we have all this data. We do laps and laps and laps on different setup options, and the teams have this data. The guys at track have the data. They can look at it and make decisions whether that's what they want to do or not. Yeah, the work is definitely useful and definitely impactful as well.
Absolutely. And great for your development too.
Yeah. Yep. More time in the car, more time spent with the engineers, basically.
All right. I'm going to leave Jak alone, Sabrina. I know we're running out of time here.
I know. I feel so bad. I know, Jak, you were so gracious in giving us time, and I want to respect that. We could ask you a gazillion questions. We're just so proud of you, and you have so much knowledge. So hopefully we can do this again some other time in the season, maybe closer to the end of the season. We're believing it's going to be a great year for you, 2025. And just know that you have so many people in America, and especially North Texas, cheering you on, proud of what you're doing, and can't wait to see what this year looks like.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, I am looking forward to this conversation because Troy is a friend of the podcast. And specifically, I love that, Troy, you found us organically. Like, I've never met you. The guys have never met you. I still don't actually know the story of how you found us, but you're all the way on the other side of the world. And I'm just delighted because you've been such a loyal audience member, so encouraging, sending us messages, telling us to keep going. And as we talked about before I turned on the recording, we have day jobs. And so this is still very much a passion project for us. And to have someone like you find us and want to share content with us, like your videos that you sent us last year of your Grand Prix visits, which is part of the reason the guys and I wanted to have this conversation with you. And as I told you ahead of the recording, the day jobs come in. And so it's going to just be you suffering a conversation, which is me. But Troy, I just want to say thank you so much for your time, because I know you're in the middle of your day job too.
Yeah.
Hi, Sabrina. Yeah, you're absolutely welcome. I'm delighted to be here and to be, to been a fan of your podcast for so long now. Oddly enough, I think it was the topic we're going to talk about today that brought me to it. I think I stumbled across one of your social posts when I was looking for comments on the event I was attending, and saw something from yourselves and said, "Oh, a new podcast," and clicked the follow button, and all of a sudden, here I am.
I love it. Well, yes, you're right. That's so cool because we actually launched the podcast 2+ years ago, I think it was, during the Monaco Grand Prix, the run up to it. So it is kind of, wow, full circle to have someone find us organically. And then now we're going to talk about something that we all love, which is the Monaco Grand Prix. And the guys and I really wanted to have you share because, one, you have such experience of traveling to Grand Prix, which you and I discussed. We'll have to have that as a separate conversation about just the overall prospect or process of how you prepare and how you choose and what that experience is like. But we're zeroing in on the Monaco Grand Prix. I just want to hear your thoughts as a regular attendee. This year you're not getting to go, but that's not because you've fallen out of love with the Monaco Grand Prix. But just kind of help. Let's think of our first group of people, the new fans to motorsport, the new fans of Formula One. Who knows how they got connected? It could be through Drive to Survive or not through Drive to Survive. Maybe it's a friend. But how would you tell them, like, what's your thesis as to why Monaco matters to attend or view, whatever that may be?
And that is interesting in itself because my memories of the Monaco Grand Prix probably predate me being a Formula One fan. It's so iconic that I've got memories of seeing it on the television from when I was very small. I didn't actually become greatly interested in racing until I was about 17. And it was already something I was aware of before my actual Formula One passion ignited. So, I've been following it for a long time. It was quite a long time ago that I was 17 and a lot of years of watching that race. And it always has something special in my imagination because of that. It's completely, I believe, unlike any of the other races on the calendar. And I know that can sometimes make it a bit love it or hate it. There's an expression in the UK that based on a popular advertising slogan that it's a bit Marmite. It's a yeast extract that people spread on bread here in the UK. It's got a very distinct flavour, and some people are absolutely passionate about it. Some people hate it. No one's ambivalent about it. And I think Monaco has that same kind of quality that you find very few people who are on the fence. They either love it or it's not for them. And that's fine because there's 24 races in the calendar and you don't have to love all of them. But I think they all bring something unique to it. The thing about Monaco that got me interested was just the absolute challenge of trying to wrestle your vehicle around a circuit that tight, absolutely at the limit. And it's so small. The thing that shocked me when I first visited there, which was in 2014, is it's actually smaller than it looks on the television. I still can't describe to people just how impossible it looks when you're there. The sight of the cars coming past you and the amount of space they've got at the speed that they're traveling at just doesn't seem real. You can't actually believe it's happening in front of your eyes. And I think that's unique. So having been to other circuits, I only live 7 miles away from Silverstone. I've attended many British Grand Prix at Silverstone, and I've been to some other Grand Prix as well. And in all of those, you're further away from the cars. There's more space between you and the track. There's greater distance between the cars and the edges. So it sanitizes it. Even though they're probably going fast, they're definitely going faster at the other races. Monaco is probably the slowest race on the calendar. But the sheer constraint of trying to drive your car in that smaller space is what I find fascinating and appealing, because they literally cannot stop concentrating for even a tenth of a second on that track, because that's the difference between completing your lap or finishing in the wall. And I think it's that kind of quest for perfection and the getting the perfect lap that continues to fascinate me about the race to this day. And that's why I think even in modern times where the race itself, and we touched on this in the introduction where we were just getting the call set up, there is a definite feel that the modern cars are just too big and it's become too processional because they can't really find the space to pass each other during a race. But for me, the absolute challenge is that Saturday afternoon, just watching the guys in qualifying trying to get a perfect lap around that circuit. I think I've just exhausted my passion on this. I think I've just absolutely, have I just talked for too long?
No, not at all. I don't want to interrupt you in any way. I think you answered so many different pieces, and I actually want to expand a little bit about it. So when you said the something unique and in comparison to the other races, I think that resonates personally very much with me. I had a conversation with a friend who is not a motorsport fan, and I was trying to explain even just the fact that because every track is different and the conditions will be different, the way that it's laid out, and even the high intensity pace that they have now of 24 races, that in of itself gives each race a new dimension, that it's challenging everybody because like just endurance and strength and mental ability to do that. And then for us to talk about Monaco as you did and putting it in the way that you did framed it, I think is very, very beneficial because it is probably the most public moment, in my opinion, for Formula One externally. Like motorsport enthusiasts, we pay attention to all the races and all the series and disciplines of motor racing, but this is when I feel like the whole entertainment and general world all of a sudden pays attention to Monaco. And John has a great statement, like he goes, anybody who's anybody in the world of celebritydom will want to be at Monaco. Do you think that Monaco is the best place for that kind of eyes on the sport, considering all the other circuits and tracks that are available now with 24 races on the calendar, especially considering your ability to have traveled to many of them?
Yeah, and I'm lucky to live in Europe, where these places are not tremendously far away. It might seem like it's a long way from the middle of the UK to Monaco, but actually, compared to traveling in the US, that's actually not that far. It's a 2-hour flight, and I'm there. That aspect of the travel is, we're very lucky in Europe that we've got a lot of races within that sort of 2 or 3 hour flight zone. But it is different to the other races, I think, in as much as even if you look at like the new street circuits, they've built venues around that street circuit. So you can look at Las Vegas, and I know they race on the Strip and on real roads in Vegas, but they built infrastructure around it that is making that into a race track. Whereas Monaco, it really does feel like they are driving in the street, they are driving in the road. I mean, you get they only close the roads while the racing's going on. For the rest of the day, I've driven my hire car up the start finish line between practice and qualifying.
That's crazy.
Okay, yeah, I've gone to practice on Thursday, then I've gone to the supermarket, and on the way home I took a wrong turn and ended up in all the traffic driving up the start finish straight because it's a public road. I mean, and that is part of, I think, what makes it so fascinating, because there's no artificiality about it. They've just taken the roads as they are, put a barrier around the edge, to protect the drivers and the buildings, and off you go, have a race. And it just seems, when you look at it now, you can see how it started in the 1920s when they someone said, we could do racing here. There's not many dedicated race tracks. Let's have a race around the streets. And it probably seemed like a good idea at the time. As that's progressed and gone on, it still retains that original character of just, can someone drive a car around this tiny little town on the Mediterranean coast?
Yeah, I like that because it connects it to the history of motorsport racing, Grand Prix racing, all of that. That's a really good point. It's not creating a track. It's just, because I'm thinking about the conversations the guys and I have had about how people used to sit on hay bales in other races, or even hay bales were what were used to barricade or protect, you can't see my air quotes, but protect the cars from going off the road, even at Monaco. And we've talked about just the safety measures that have impacted the sport. So this race, as you're highlighting, gives at least a echo of that past while it's still modernized, and that could have benefits and that could have negatives, as we said, about some of the commentary and critical feedback that comes as to whether or not Monaco has become that processional. I do love how you highlighted Saturday's quali, because I agree. I think quali, and maybe even this year because of what we're seeing around all the calendar and the races, the importance of quali, but I've always thought that quali at Monaco is really the day to be paying attention to, and that watching those drivers make those absolute laser focused races to see, or laps, those laser focused laps, to be able to see where they can get onto that grid, that just shows that man and machine battle. And as you noted, the concentration element of it. I wonder, what is that like watching quali from the stands?
Oh, it's intense, and there are moments when you can feel the whole stand that you're in hold their breath. You can see someone, you can just visibly see when someone is absolutely on it. They are so close to the wall. There's nothing. You can hear them staying on the throttle when other people have come off. The whole grandstand's probably vibrating because you're so close to the cars when they go past. Even with these newer engines that aren't as loud as the old V8s, it's still a lot of noise when one of those goes past you full speed. And that sense of tension of knowing that someone has that minute and a half to deliver, that's absolutely palpable there. And I've gone to the race with people who are dyed-in-the-wool Formula One fans who've been watching it their whole lives, and I've gone with people who've never been to a Formula One race before, and everybody gets something out of it. It sparks something in everybody. It's so visceral. visceral. It's so intense, and particularly on that Saturday, I think there's nothing like that. I've met people on the Sunday who've turned up and just come for the Sunday, and quite often the conversation comes around to, you missed the best part. Saturday is the day I would make sure I was here for if I could only come to one day.
I wonder, how many times have you been now?
I've been to 9.
Okay. And when did you go? You said in 2014 was your first one?
2014 was my first one.
With the advent of like more social media and people wanting to have their cameras to record these experiences, have you noticed, are people putting their cameras down and like just experiencing that visceral, what you said, the up close aspect, the feeling of the car? Or are you noticing a shift of where people are wanting to capture it for there's a phrase that people say, what is it, capture it for the gram?
Oh yeah.
And like, how does that feel for you as someone who was attracted not because of the social media, but because of the experience of being there in the cars? What's your thoughts on all of that?
For sure, you can't go there without having some selfie moments. You know, you're going to bump into someone, like you said about the celebrities and it's being the place to be seen. There's always people around. There's always going to be people that you see, you know, and a lot of them will stop and talk if you're polite and kind. You know, 2 years ago we ended up having selfies with Stefano Domenicali, and who we'd just bumped into while we were having a drink after the race.
Wow.
Saw him about an hour later, and he still remembered that he'd had a selfie with us. You know, he waved and said he's still having a nice time, lads. So, it was, you know,
cool.
that is something you're not going to see just by standing around by the grandstand having a pint after the race if you're at another circuit, because that will all be closed off. Whereas in Monaco, you know, you're part of it. It's happening in the town around you. You know, there is no VIP. Well, there are VIP areas that you can't go into, but it is happening everywhere, all around the town. So there's people moving around and taking part in it. So those selfie moments will definitely happen. Do they happen when people are on track? I still tend to see that at the start of the session, when people see the cars for the first time, they'll grab their phone out, they'll want to take a picture. But you watch them, actually that diminishes as the session goes on, and people seem to sort of lean forward and lean into it a bit more. The phones go down and people actually become just fascinated by watching what's going on in front of them. And that's been my experience, particularly, you know, I've seen more and more cameras go up at the start of a session, not just at Monaco, at other races I've attended as well. You know, people tend to just be excited. I'm here. Woo, I want to get it on camera. But then you can watch as they actually get drawn into the event. And that is definitely a trend that I've seen, that the cameras do come out. In the end, you can't take your eyes off the racing because it's so close to you. The proximity is the thing you can never just explain to someone how close that is compared to other circuits. If you haven't been there, I literally couldn't believe how close I was to the cars the first time I went.
That's so cool. It's on my list. John's been, and I know it's been a few decades since he's been. So that's why it's very interesting to me to hear it from someone like you who's been in recent years, and with the difference in the cars and just the experience, especially I think with now the more digital component to our lives. I'm always curious to hear how things have changed. I wonder, since you have been a veteran of this race, what are some of the tips that you would want to give? We're going to air this hopefully close to the Monaco Grand Prix ahead of it. So your tips might be helpful if someone somehow has the ability to quickly get over there. But even if they're contemplating going in a future year, which in our early pre-recording, you had a great statement about how you decided to start going to races and actually just increase your travel. I'd love for you to also just tie that in for the audience.
It was probably about 2013, 2014, when someone was asking me about Formula One, you know, and I'd been to Silverstone before, and they were like, oh, what other races have you been to? And I kind of said, oh, I'd love to go to Monaco one day. And in my head, that triggered something. I thought, well, if I keep saying that, I'll never go. I have to have a plan. So I came up with a plan of how I would go about it, and I did it on a super tight budget. I mean, I went to the Monaco Grand Prix, including flights and accommodation and tickets, for less money than I'd spent going to Silverstone the year before, which, as I said, is like a 7-mile drive for me. I really put a lot of effort into planning the travel, but it all came about from that hearing my own voice say, I'll do that one day. So I kind of built that into my life now. And we were talking earlier about other non-F1 travel and things that I've done. And I kind of, when I hear myself say, oh, I'll do that one day, it just makes me stop and think, do I really mean that? And if I do, what's my plan? What is the one day? Is it this year, next year, 5 years? How am I going to go about it? Try not to leave those opportunities. Just let them drift by. If there's something you really want to do, then make a plan and set yourself to it. And that's how I ended up going the first time. It was exactly that, you know, someone said to me, where would you want to go if you could go to any Formula One race? And I said, Monaco. Didn't even blink. I said, I'll do it one day. And then it was like, well, when is one day? I'm gonna make a plan. I'm gonna do it. And the guys listening, they may still think that Monaco's not for them, but maybe there's another race or something else they want to do. Don't wait. Come up with a plan and see if you can pull it off, because let me tell you, that was one of the best decisions I've made, is to go and actually see that for myself. And it will be with me forever. I've got little pangs this year because I'm not able to attend, because my other plans have got in the way of attending this year. I will miss it when I turn it on and watch it on the television, and I can't feel the cars going past and feel the wind and smell the cars in action. It's such an impact on all of your senses that when you see it on television, it just seems so sterile by comparison. So if you get an opportunity to do something like this, then go and do it.
And what would be your tips for anybody who's now just excited at the prospect of being able to go?
You don't have to go to all the days. If you want to go really cheap, the practice day is always the cheapest. Even now, you can probably still get tickets for, I haven't looked at the availability, so I could be wrong. But normally right up until that weekend, you can get tickets for the free practice day. If you could go and just do that, then go, because at least you'll see the cars in action. At least you get to experience what it's like, even if you're not there for a competitive session. So don't think you have to book a whole weekend. Don't think you have to buy the really expensive ticket. The first year I went, I did the general admission tickets, stood on the hillside underneath the palace. So if you've ever looked at the place on the TV, above the pitch, you can see there's like a big hillside that's normally got hundreds of fans, or thousands probably of fans, all packed shoulder to shoulder on it. You can get on there for really quite reasonable money. You do need to be prepared to get there early and stake your spot and not move until the session that you've gone to watch is over, because if you move, someone will have your spot. But you can do it and get an amazing view, because you're right up on the hillside looking down on the whole circuit. If you're prepared to do that, if you're the kind of person who's prepared to go, hold your spot, do it on a budget, and commit a whole day to just standing there waiting for that like 1 or 2 hours of competitive session, then there is no better place in Monaco to see the race from than on that hillside. But it's quite uncomfortable, and you will spend a lot of days stood there trying to protect your position from people who want your view. If not, then the different grandstands all have something different to bring. So one of the top things I learned from attending is just how close the Tabac grandstand is. So when they come out of the tunnel, they go through a chicane, they go down the side of the harbour, and then there's a left-handed corner called Tabac, which is right on the harbour, and then they go into the swimming pool. Obviously not literally into the swimming pool, that's what the corner's called. And right behind you there is the first corner, Saint Devote, and I had no idea that they were geographically so close together from watching it on television. But if you sit at the back of that grandstand looking at Tabac corner, which is grandstand K1, you can turn around and see the first corner as well, because it's right behind you. That is something I didn't know, and if I was looking to book seats again, that's somewhere I always look to see, is there availability there. That's a great spot to watch from. And then the other thing is just about eating and drinking. You don't have to, unlike other Grand Prix where you're in if you go to Silverstone or Monza or Spa, and I assume it will be the same in the US races, you're inside a private venue where, they're controlling all the catering, and it's all at, event prices. In Monaco, you are literally in a town. There are hundreds of different businesses all competing for your trade. And yes, if you go to the ones that are right next to the circuit where everyone is just paying whatever money that people are asking, then you're going to pay a lot of money for food. But if you go 3 streets back and go into a little cafe in a side street, you can get really reasonable food for reasonable money. And a lot of them, they sell food and drink for charities. So if you can find the charity stands, you're going to pay peanuts, the charity benefits, and you get your, sandwich and a beer or whatever it is that you want. If you do attend, don't necessarily eat from the places that are right by the circuit and the grandstands. Take that 5 minutes to walk away from the circuit, and you'll find somewhere much nicer to sit and eat and drink at a reasonable budget.
Do you have recommendations of how to do the accommodations, like hotels? Should they stay directly in Monaco or a little bit out? What's the transportation situation like?
So this is an excellent question. So there's a train line that goes from, it goes from Cannes through Nice, through Monaco, and then it goes up into Italy. So you can either stay in Italy on the sort of Italy-France border and get the train in, or from Cannes and Nice. So I've stayed in Nice many times to do this, and it's 20 minutes on the train. So you can buy a train ticket for very reasonable money. You can get an unlimited ticket as well, which, where you can go backwards and forwards between Nice and Monaco as many times as you need over the week or weekend of the ticket. That means that it's very practical for you to stay outside of Monaco and travel in for the race. It's going to be standing room only on some of those trains when you're getting close to race time or soon after the race, but you can do it, and it's very achievable. There are buses from the other towns as well if you want to avoid the train. It takes a little bit longer, but you might get a seat. But I've done that. Almost all of the trips I've done by staying in Nice, very reasonable accommodation, and then taking the train in and out of Monaco. I think that's one of my tips for all the Grand Prix I've attended is I don't necessarily try and stay as close as possible to the race. If you give yourself a 20-minute, half an hour journey, you might be just somewhere that's a little bit easier for you to find accommodation and to travel in and out. And the other thing I like to do is if I'm planning ahead is you can book that accommodation early. On most bookings now, you can book with no deposit and a free cancellation for hotels. And so if you think you know what dates the race is going to fall on, just proactively book that in advance before the race date is announced, because once the race date is announced, the prices go up. So get that booked and in the diary. If they don't put it on the date you expected, it comes on a different date, you can always cancel the booking. Nothing ventured, nothing gained.
Do you attempt to watch the feeder series like F2 when they're there? And does that help you, if you do, in getting there earlier before the mass that's coming for F1?
Yeah, it actually can do. So we went to watch the F2 races last year, and we were well in our seats when we were watching the people all queuing up to come into the grandstands later for the main event. There was obviously quite a lot of people influxing. And then that's how we ended up meeting Stefano Domenicali, was that we stayed afterwards as well, so that we didn't go out in the rush. We stayed at the grandstand and went to the bar by the grandstand afterwards and had a drink and something to eat before we made our way out of the stands and back into the town.
Okay, yeah, that was actually what I was thinking is might be the best thing is get there early. Well, you've made the case for the grandstand. I'm sitting there thinking, man, Under the Palace sounds super cool, except it sounds like I would never be able to eat, use the restroom, and my legs might be ready by the end of the day to be done. But a great view of great racing, it's hard to argue against that too. But okay, assuming what you said, K1 grandstand, get there early, get to enjoy a 20-minute drive, which is or ride on a train, which I'm assuming is got a scenic view, right? You're going down the coast.
It goes right down the coast. Yeah, gorgeous.
The sun is rising. You're looking at the Mediterranean. You're getting ready to go for a wonderful day of racing.
You're on the Côte d'Azur when you get on that train and you go down that ride. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like a wonderful morning. As a non-morning person, that actually sounds wonderful to me. Get there, watch some of the F2, get a nice seat, and then who knows, you may be around people. Sounds like the Stefano Domenicali aspect of it, or anybody who's really just a fellow enthusiast. Enjoy a day of racing. Let the crowds go and support a local charity by getting off the beaten path and enjoy a dinner and let the crowds make their way through the train. And then you have your own opportunity to head home. Like, it sounds like a lovely day. I can see why you would want to do that over and over.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And the atmosphere after the race is always amazing. Like, the whole town is partying, every bar, every cafe, everyone in there. All, it's like you're in a town made up of people who all share your hobby.
That's wonderful.
Everyone wants to talk to you about it. Everyone wants to, they'll look at who you're repping for based on your shirt or your cap or whatever. They'll ask you questions about it. It's very friendly. It's not very tribal. People will be happy that you're just there to support it, whoever you're supporting. So that's all part of the experience, I think. And again, it is different to go into a purpose-built track, which I've done and I've also loved, but it's very different to do that and be in a place which is a working, living, breathing town.
It sounds like Monaco thrives and enjoys the fact that they get to welcome the world to their home for a few days on something they're super passionate about, and see as iconic as the casino is the Grand Prix race or racing in general at Monaco. Let me ask you this. You've gone multiple years. What's your favorite winner year? Like the driver who won in that time.
Oh, wow. I don't think you could beat the buzz from the year that Daniel Ricciardo won.
Really?
There was not a person in the place who was not happy to see that man win the Grand Prix. Everybody was delighted. So absolutely, the place was buzzing. The fact that I'd chosen to stand next to an Australian all day actually helped to make that better for me. I think, they were so excited. They could believe that they'd come on the day that they finally got to see an Australian win it. So the fact they carried an inflatable kangaroo with them all day was kind of made up for when Daniel delivered the goods.
That's great. The little honey badger winning. That's your year. I love it. Yeah. That is so fantastic. Is there anything else you'd like to share before I say we will have to continue our conversation of your insights regarding travel to all these wonderful Grand Prix races?
If you're going in a group, that's the other thing. I've done this before where, it's just been two of you and that's nice and easy to organize. If you're planning a bigger group, you need to know before the tickets come out? What's our budget? Where are we going to plan it? And give one person the job of booking it and getting it done. Otherwise, by the time you've had the discussion about all these tickets are available at this price and should we book that, they've already gone. So you need to have your plan. If you want to get those tickets, as a group, discuss what's our budget, where do we want to sit, what are our options, and then delegate one person to book that on your behalf and be happy with whatever they manage to get. Because I've missed the tickets I wanted for Spa this year because we were busy having a debate about which tickets did we actually want. And by the time we all decided as a group, there were 6 of us this year, so it's a lot of people to get to agree. They were gone, and we've had to pick a different grandstand.
Yeah, people won't realize, especially first timers, might not realize how quickly these things, hotels and tickets, all start to move. I love your tip about booking early in a hotel and knowing the cancellation dates. This has been part of the reason why I haven't been able to make it to a Grand Prix yet. My first one will be this year at Coda. And because like the last 2 years, yeah, I'm so excited. But Monaco is on my list. And also actually Silverstone is on there too. Hopefully at some point.
It's on mine. So at some point, I'm going to be asking you for tips, Sabrina.
Yes, I will definitely. The guys have gone. And so I've been asking them. Maybe we'll do that closer to the Grand Prix tips of how to get to Coda and what to do. And if anything, when we get closer to some of these other races, we'll have other conversations with you, utilize your experience. I will actually open it up to our listeners, people who have gone to races or have thoughts. I want you all to realize that we are so delighted that Troy has been so proactive in reaching out to us and supporting what we're doing. I hope that you will see this as an example of our desire to really create a community here of enthusiasts of motorsport, specifically Formula One, and that this is a welcoming environment for people to share. And who knows, maybe we can have an event one day, like together, everybody go, hey, we're all going to be at this race and get to meet up in person, right? Wouldn't it be great? I would love that. So I say thank you, Troy, for your time, your insights, your support for what we're doing. And I look forward to our next conversation.
You're very welcome, Sabrina. Thank you very much for the podcast and making me feel like part of your Formula One family. And I don't feel like a race weekend is complete until I've heard your debrief on the day after. So, that's you're part of my Grand Prix weekend now.
Oh, that's amazing. I just can't even tell you. I'm so humbled. I know the guys are too. And for me and the guys, we say thank you. We didn't know when we started this where this would go. And almost 2 years later, it's just been a joy for us. And so thank you for being a part of this family. Okay, friends, what did you think of our conversation? Drop me a line via email, sabrina@2guysagirlandf1.com. Can you help us out? If you haven't already, please take a moment to follow us and give us 5 stars on your favorite podcast app, as well as share this episode with other F1 fans. We know our growth is because of you, and the guys and I thank you. And with that, let me say, we'll keep talking and you can keep listening in because we're just 2 guys, a girl, and F1. For John, Dick, and me, Sabrina, thanks for listening.